When we think of the 20th century, few names send shivers down the spine quite like Adolf Hitler. His vision for Nazi Germany and his decisions during World War II left scars on every continent. And even today, we ask the question, were his strategies the work of a military genius or reckless madness that doomed millions? For many older generations, memories of this era come from stories told by parents and grandparents who endured the war. Perhaps you recall black and white photographs, grainy newsreels, or voices on the radio declaring victory or defeat. These memories still echo. So tonight, let us take a careful journey back in time. Together, we will examine Hitler's key decisions, the rise and fall of Nazi Germany, and the strategies that shaped World War II. But as we do, we will also ask, at what cost? The legacy of World War I and the rise of Hitler. Before World War II erupted, the ground was already laid by World War I. Germany, defeated in 1918, signed the Treaty of Versailles, which imposed crushing reparations, strict military limits, and territorial losses. Ordinary Germans felt humiliated and betrayed. Many struggled through economic crises, hyperinflation in the 1920s, and mass unemployment during the Great Depression. Hitler exploited this pain. With fiery speeches, propaganda, and promises of a new dawn, he convinced millions that Nazi Germany would rise again. By the mid-1930s, Hitler had rebuilt the military, violating Versailles openly, while Britain and France hesitated. This was the seed of his war strategy: bold risks, taken while others stayed cautious. Early gambles: the Rhineland, Austria, and Czechoslovakia. In 1936, German troops marched into the Rhineland. It was forbidden territory, but Hitler gambled correctly. Neither France nor Britain acted. 2 years later came the Anschluss, the annexation of Austria. German soldiers were welcomed with flowers, and once again, the world stood silent. Then came Czechoslovakia. At the Munich Conference in 1938, Britain and France surrendered the Sudetenland in hopes of peace. Hitler promised no further claims, but by 1939, the rest of Czechoslovakia fell under Nazi control. Each gamble reinforced Hitler's belief: the world will not stop me. The invasion of Poland and the outbreak of World War II. On September 1, 1939, Hitler invaded Poland, unleashing blitzkrieg, a new form of lightning war. Tanks, planes, and infantry struck in coordination, overwhelming defenses before they could organize. Within weeks, Poland was crushed, and Europe stood at the brink of chaos. Britain and France declared war, and World War II had begun. Blitzkrieg, Hitler's revolutionary strategy. Unlike the slow trench warfare of World War I, Blitzkrieg relied on shock, speed, and surprise. Germany used armored divisions and the Luftwaffe to slice through enemy lines, paralyzing response. This strategy stunned the world. Denmark fell in a day. Norway surrendered in weeks. Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg collapsed quickly. Then came France, conquered in just 6 weeks in 1940. The success of Blitzkrieg made Hitler look like a military genius, but Blitzkrieg was also fragile, dependent on perfect timing, supply chains, and surprise. The Battle of Britain, Hitler's first failure. In 1940, with France defeated, Britain stood alone. Hitler believed the island nation would surrender, but under Winston Churchill's leadership, Britain held firm. The Luftwaffe launched waves of bombing raids, targeting RAF airfields and later British cities in the Blitz. Families huddled in underground shelters as London burned. And yet, Britain did not fall. The Royal Air Force, using radar and sheer determination, repelled the German air assault. For the first time, Hitler's strategy had failed. His aura of invincibility cracked. Operation Barbarossa, the fatal gamble. In June 1941, Hitler made his most ambitious move, invading the Soviet Union with over 3 million soldiers. Operation Barbarossa was the largest invasion in history. At first it worked. Vast Soviet armies were encircled and destroyed. German forces reached the outskirts of Moscow. Nazi propaganda declared victory was near. But then came winter. German soldiers wore summer uniforms in freezing temperatures. Tanks stalled in snow. Supply lines stretched thin. The Red Army regrouped and counterattacked. Here, Hitler's gamble revealed its weakness. Blitzkrieg had no answer for Russia's size, resilience, and brutal winter. What began as a bold strategy turned into a nightmare. The human cost of Hitler's strategy behind every campaign lay human suffering. In occupied Poland, Jewish families were rounded up, leading to the horrors of the Holocaust. In Russia, civilians endured starvation in the siege of Leningrad. In London, bombs rained down night after night. When we speak of Hitler's strategy, we must never forget its human cost. Millions of innocent lives were lost, not just soldiers, but ordinary families who wanted only peace. The United States enters the war. In December 1941, the world changed overnight. Japan launched a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, striking the American Pacific Fleet. Within hours, battleships lay in flames, smoke rose into the sky, and over 2,000 Americans lost their lives. In Berlin, Hitler celebrated. Convinced that Japan's strength would keep America occupied in the Pacific, he made one of his most reckless decisions. He declared war on the United States. By doing so, he brought the world's greatest industrial power into the fight against Nazi Germany. American factories, untouched by bombs, began working day and night. Tanks rolled off assembly lines in Detroit. Airplanes filled the skies from newly built plants. Ships carrying food, weapons, and troops crossed the Atlantic in endless convoys. Germany, already stretched thin on the Eastern Front against the Soviet Union, now faced an enemy with limitless resources and manpower. From that moment, Hitler's defeat became not just possible, but inevitable. His reckless declaration of war had sealed the fate of Nazi Germany. Turning points: Stalingrad and North Africa. In 1942, Hitler turned his eyes eastward again. His ambition was to seize the oil fields of the Caucasus, but the key lay in one city, Stalingrad. On the banks of the Volga River, this city bore the name of Hitler's greatest enemy, Joseph Stalin. For Hitler, capturing it would be more than strategy. It would be a symbolic victory, a personal triumph. The Germans advanced into the city, and what followed was unlike anything Europe had seen before. Stalingrad became a city of ruins and fire. Entire blocks were reduced to rubble. Yet the Soviets clung to every street, every building, every basement. Fighting took place room by room, with soldiers battling over factories, stairwells, even sewers. The German army, which had once stormed across Europe with lightning speed, now found itself bogged down in brutal house-to-house combat. As autumn turned to the harsh Russian winter, the tables turned. The Red Army launched a massive counteroffensive. They encircled the German Sixth Army, trapping more than 250,000 men inside the frozen city. Hitler, in his arrogance, forbade retreat. Not one step back, he ordered. At the very same time, events in North Africa further darkened Hitler's hopes. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, the famed Desert Fox, had dazzled the world with his daring maneuvers. But even Rommel's brilliance could not withstand the growing weight of Allied power. At the Battle of El Alamein in late 1942, British forces under General Montgomery halted his advance. Soon after, American troops joined the fight with Operation Torch, landing in Morocco and Algeria. Caught between East and West, Rommel's forces were squeezed and ultimately forced to surrender in Tunisia. For the first time, the Allies had pushed back the Axis powers on both fronts. The momentum of war was shifting, slowly but surely, against Hitler. D-Day and the collapse of Nazi Germany. On June 6, 1944, Allied forces landed in Normandy, D-Day. It was the largest amphibious invasion in history. While German defenses were strong, they could not hold back the tide. From the west, Allies advanced through France. From the east, the Soviets pushed forward relentlessly. By 1945, Berlin itself was under siege. In April 1945, Hitler, hiding in his bunker, took his own life. His so-called strategy had led to ruin. Germany lay in ruins, divided and destroyed. Was Hitler a military genius? Looking back, some argue that Hitler's daring early moves showed brilliance. But true military genius is not about short-term victories. It is about foresight, adaptability, and the ability to achieve lasting success. Hitler's strategy was reckless. He underestimated his enemies. He overextended his armies. He let ideology guide his decisions, ignoring reason and reality. His so-called genius collapsed into madness, and the price was paid in blood. Lessons from history. History is more than battles and maps. It is about people. The soldier shivering on the Eastern Front, the mother in London holding her child as bombs fell, the Jewish family hiding in fear, waiting for a knock on the door. These are the real stories of World War II. As we reflect, we must ask, what can we learn? That arrogance leads to ruin, that hatred destroys, and that even in the darkest times, resilience and courage can endure. Closing reflection. So, was Hitler's strategy genius or madness? Perhaps at first it seemed like genius, but history has judged otherwise. His ambition blinded him. His arrogance destroyed him. In the end, what remains is not brilliance, but tragedy. And I leave you with this question. If you had lived through those years, what would you have seen? Genius or madness?